Recently, at the Tampa Bay Times Reading Festival, I had the chance to talk with Kate, and some of our Pinellas County students emailed me some really interesting questions that we asked Kate. Well, I'm going to ask you a few questions that were sent in by students.
From the kids, yeah.
From the kids. These are straight from the kids. And they are dying to know some things.
Okay, I'll do my best.
So Noah and Aaron want to know. You typically have an animal in the story. Why is that?
So, Noah and Aaron, you want to know why I typically have an animal in the story. And I get asked this question a lot because I think in almost every book that I've written, there's an animal. And I think there are two reasons. One, I love animals. I thought for a long time I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid. And then the second answer is because I think as readers, we're much more inclined to put down our guard when it comes to animals sometimes than it is. We don't open up quite as much for each other as we do for animals. And when I was a kid, some of my favorite books had animals as the protagonists. Paddington, Ralph S. Mouse, Stuart Little, I could go on.
Jameson wants to know. Well, Jameson noticed the names that you use when you write for your characters. So the question is, how do you come up with those names?
This is, so Jameson, you want to know where I come up with, you didn't say it, but I know this is what you mean, all those strange names. And writing is so hard for me. Everything about it is hard for me, except for that one thing. Names kind of pop into my head, and I've learned to always have a notebook with me so that I can jot down those character names when they show up. I don't know where they come from. I just know that I love doing it, and it's the only part of writing that's easy for me.
Kate Takala has a question for you. Why did you make Sistine fierce? Is it because maybe you were fierce when you were a child?
Takala, that is a great question about Sistine, because Sistine Bailey in The Tiger Rising is the character that up to that point, it was when people said, have you put yourself in a book? Sistine was the closest that I'd gotten up to that point. And I was very shy as a kid, but there is an inner core of ferocity, and yes, you're right. That's where that comes from, me.
Okay, Serenity has this to say. Hey, I love your writing. Edward Tulane and Tiger Rising and Winn-Dixie. It would be a dream come true to meet you. So I will get to the question. Why do you have the ability to make someone cry? And you make me so hooked on your writing. I've had a hard life. I got taken away from my mom and dad, and I still don't see him. So your stories make me feel so relaxed.
Serenity. What a beautiful, beautiful letter you wrote, where you kind of put your heart on the page. And I have to say, I don't know how my stories can make you cry and feel safe at the same time. But what you did in that letter is what I'm always trying to do in the stories, which is to put my heart on the page. And I think that a lot of what we need from stories is for the stories to tell us the truth and to see our own experience reflected in them. And so some of my experience intersects with your experience. I too grew up without my dad, and so I think that maybe that's why you and I connect on the page. Thank you for those beautiful words.
So, Kate, your project that you've just completed is a wordless picture book,
Yeah.
La La La, and you're so well known for your words.
Right.
What was it like to take a project like this on, and what inspired you to write a nearly wordless picture book?
It is nearly wordless. The only word is law, and law. And but it's funny because before I went out to promote this book, I wrote a speech about where it came from. And in writing that, I figured that this wordless thing is still the same story that I'm telling all the time, which is that story of wanting to connect. And and finding a way to connect by telling stories or by singing. So it's the same story, even though it has virtually no words. It's still the same story.
After our chat, Kate spoke to a packed house at the festival about her career and books. Among those in the audience were some of our Pinellas County coaches. So we are here at the Tampa Bay Times Reading Festival with two of our literacy coaches. We just got the chance to listen to Kate DiCamillo speak. I'm interested in hearing, what are your reactions?
One of the things that we said to each other is we are so in awe that we get to listen to this writer and her inspirations and how she connects to other people, and how all of those connections are what fueled her purpose for writing those stories.
And how the power of story connects people, even the most diverse types of people, and how it can bring you together just from one story or that you shared together.
And so I'm interested in hearing, how do you take your experience today and bring this to your role as a literacy coach?
One of the things that we were thinking about as we were walking up was that the power of a teacher reading to you and reading aloud to you, and she explained how all of the inspiration she had came from her teacher who read aloud to her and all the teachers that read aloud to her. So just keeping that love for literacy alive in the classroom so that we can propel all of these students to become lifelong readers and writers.
And just really as teachers thinking about how that connection and how books really get kids talking and thinking about things, and not always being able to answer some of those questions, like she said in the books, kind of makes us wonder that life is not always full of answers, and sometimes you just have to learn and get those experiences through books and conversations with other people.
Books as mirrors and windows, one of our mantras for the year. So thank you so much for being with us today, and I'm still a little awestruck. I don't know about you all. I haven't come down from this high, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Recently at Bay Point Elementary, I did a lesson with a group of third graders and had them analyze some of Kate's writing styles. You can read other books like by Kate DiCamillo, and you can recognize patterns in the book. You can recognize her style. You can say to yourself, I'm a stronger reader having read one book now that I approach the next book. And we're going to prove that today. And so you will know you're successful at this work when you can find, when you can find repetition, when you can find patterns that are alike. You can talk about it with your partner and record what you find in your notebook. All right, so I love the way that you're starting with one item in mind, like you're thinking about characters, right? So one of the things that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a little tip. I'm just gonna leave you with a little hint. And I'm gonna put this on a Post-it because you're already doing character work. I want you to be thinking about, how is the mother mouse, Antoinette, like Edward? And I don't mean just their name or what they look like, but more about what they're like on the inside. How is the mother mouse Antoinette like Edward? I have mother mouse, her name is Antoinette, and then Edward. Will you go back in your text and look for evidence to say, how are they alike? Not the outside traits. See your chart right there? Not the outside traits, but the inside traits. How you're looking for patterns, right? How things repeat, or what's alike in the stories. Great. What have you come up with so far? I saw you did some writing.
It was with the Edward trait. Pellegrino kept saying Edward are disappointed.
Okay, so you recorded that, right? That idea of disappointment. So you're kind of thinking about character feelings and how they might be alike, right?
She said Edward and Desperado, is it?
Desperado. First talk about Edward. Why does she send Edward on a journey? Why do you think Kate DiCamillo shows us he's on a journey? What is she trying to show us about his journey?
He's trying to show us how Edward finds love.
I really think those students developed a new appreciation for Kate's literary style, and hopefully they'll be able to find some of her books on the bus this summer.
I'm sure that they will.